Well, we typically hear about the Red Cross at times of emergency, but the work of preparing for disasters is happening all the time. Here to tell us about how young people can help lay the groundwork is Harold Anderson. He's Regional Volunteer Engagement Specialist for the American Red Cross of Northeast Florida. Good morning, Harold.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you this morning?
Wonderful. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here this morning.
We're also joined by Keisha Simms. She is Service to the Armed Forces Regional Manager at the American Red Cross. Good morning,
Good
Keisha.
morning. Good
Thank you for
morning.
being here. So, Keisha, you've worked around the world as well as locally, supporting the military for 17 years. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to this work and some of the deployments that you've had overseas?
Absolutely. So I started out in Louisville, Kentucky, doing what we call our emergency communication messages. So that is verifying a situation to get our service members home as quickly as possible.
What kind of situation might that be?
It could be the death of an immediate family member or a grandparent. It could be an illness, but it can also be the birth of a child, which is always exciting for us to do. And so
And so the Red Cross is involved in those kinds of communications.
Yes, so we are chartered by Congress to provide that service to the military. And it's helpful because it helps command make an informed decision about letting the service member come home, how long they can come home, and then it also helps with that financial assistance.
Gotcha. And so those are sometimes delicate conversations. That's something that you trained for?
Yes, so we do a intense training either in person or online. We learn about interview style and then also compassion and then also taking care of ourselves when we're doing those because we sometimes have calls where suicide is involved.
Mm.
And so making sure that we are being compassionate with our clients, but also being compassionate with ourselves.
All right. Um, the work that you've done, as I said, you've kind of also traveled more around the world. You've worked in Germany and Poland, Kuwait, Spain, Japan. How is it different working in those different environments?
So here in Jacksonville, we have our different departments. Overseas, we are the Red Cross. So you may have an office that has one person, and we do disaster, we do those Red Cross messages, training services. And so we live and work on military installations overseas. So we are embedded in that community. Shopping on base, going to church, that's our family. And so we do everything. And we really rely on our volunteers, which is normally either our service members and sometimes the dependents.
So, Harold, one of the things that you help coordinate here is ways for especially young people to get involved with
Yeah.
opportunities with the American Red Cross. What kind of opportunities are available, and uh, how do you talk to younger people about it? I mean, what is the value of that kind of work for them?
So one of the major ways that our young people can get involved that we really promote here is our Red Cross clubs. So Red Cross clubs are organizations or clubs that are formed in high schools and on college campuses, and it helps them partner with the local chapter in order to further the mission. One of the ways that they can get involved, things that they do is organize blood drives. They do preparedness events on their campuses and in the community. When I say preparedness, I mean disaster preparedness events.
Mm.
They come together to do home fire campaigns where they install smoke alarms in the local community in order to make sure that our homes and our houses are safer. They do things like fundraising for global relief efforts. And they just do anything that we do at our local Red Cross, they can do it there in their local school community.
And what do you find is the value for the Red Cross if young people are getting involved and kind of early on learning about some of these skills and services?
So 95% of the work that we do at the Red Cross is done through volunteers. Okay, so if we can start early, right, embedding this mission into them and getting them involved with this philanthropic work and this humanitarian efforts, then we have what sometimes, a lot of times, lifelong Red Crossers, and they end up becoming ingrained in the mission, ingrained in the work, and they stick with us a lot of time after they graduate from college and go on and in their other local communities.
A lot of people associate the Red Cross with certain things like learning, CPR, life-saving skills, right? And that kind of training, or, after a home fire, kind of being there and being a resource for the family. Are there things that the American Red Cross does that you think most people are less aware of?
I'm glad that you mentioned those 2 things because the first thing that usually comes up is blood services,
Yeah.
when people say American Red Cross, especially over in the States. As Lakeisha said, there's a difference. But other things that we do, like we said, is we do disaster preparedness. We don't just respond to disasters, but we also try to, make sure that the community is resilient and prepared before there are disasters in order to alleviate that before it even happens. We have training services where we just don't do CPR training, but we do water safety training. We do babysitting training.
Mm.
We do all type of trainings you can ever think of. We do it nationally at the Red Cross. Um, and so those are some of the areas that I think people don't know that we involve ourselves in, especially when it comes to disaster preparedness.
So disaster preparedness has gotten much more complicated. It's become a much larger task in recent years. We've seen so many disasters, whether it's wildfires that have been so devastating, or storms that have displaced people. The kind of the perils of climate change making all of those things a lot more challenging. So, how is the Red Cross responding to that, especially being so reliant on just volunteers to do the work?
I can't tell you enough how much our volunteers like really push and make the work that we do happen every day. We're so organized and well structured when it comes to that till we have volunteers that that's all they do is focus on going out and doing outreach and preparedness. Whether that be community preparedness in senior citizen facilities or in our local schools or in our local communities or whatever, they have that in place. So some of the ways that we do is just make sure that we stay vigilant, make sure we keep our volunteer base up, make sure everyone stays trained, and make sure that we make those community partnerships so that we can build a more resilient community.
And Keisha, one of the things that you help coordinate is this partnership with NAS Jacksonville and the hospital, the Naval Hospital. Um, can you just describe what opportunities are available to kids who participate in that? Because it sounds like a really neat behind the scenes, opportunity.
Absolutely. So the Red Cross has a program called Volunteer Program. And so it's for youth ages 14 to 17, and we partner with our military treatment facilities. And so we place them in a department and they get hands on experience. So one of our big departments that the kids really enjoy was ortho and PT and learning about the bones and different things. So it's giving them an insight to the health care facilities, but then it's also giving them an insight into how it works in the military and seeing it because sometimes it's a little different. So it's, there are futures. So a lot of these kids end up going into the military to be in that field because they started through the Red Cross Youth Club or
And
the
so
Red Cross Youth
what
Program.
do they take from that? I mean, having gone through that kind of training and that experience.
So they get hours, which is obviously really great for scholarships. They get some networking because you're dealing with, officers. You're also dealing with enlisted in the military, and so because we PCS, we move around every 3 years. There's a possibility you're going to
PCS.
permanent change of station.
Okay.
So we move around every 3 years, which means you may come into contact with these people again, and then they can kind of help guide you and get you where you need to be in your career.
And do they typically enjoy that experience?
They love it.
Yeah.
We've got every year we have returning students. I believe this year we have about 8 that are returning because they really enjoyed it.
Harold, how do kids, I mean, if they are interested in getting involved or if a parent wants to kind of urge their kid to get involved, where can they find information?
So the first place that they can go is to redcross.org/volunteer. And go on and check to see if their local high school or local college has a Red Cross club there. If they don't, we would love for them to start one. It's as easy as contacting the local chapter office or, like I said, going through the website at redcross.org/volunteer. And we will walk them through those steps on how they can start a Red Cross club there and how they can even come in and get some training to be volunteers in our different lines of services as well.
Well, excellent. Keisha Simms, Harold Anderson, thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate it. And thanks for the work that you do.
Thanks for
All right.
having
Thank
us.
you for having us.
All right.